guys, and I'm going to go hit the restroom real
Hey everybody, welcome to MLSsoccer.com's US Open Cup final preview show from New York City, taking you all the way up to kickoff at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's Real Salt Lake and DC United. Catch the game on Goal TV. We'll take you all the way up to the start of the game. Unfortunately, until then, you got to settle for these guys, Simon Borg and Greg Lawless. I'm Nick Furshaw. Plenty to get to and plenty of talent on the show tonight. Andrew Wiebe from MLSsoccer.com and former U.S. national team and MLS defender Corey Gibbs going to step in a little bit later. Samantha Yarrick handling all your comments on Twitter, and we'll kick it out to Rio Tinto Stadium in Sandy, Utah, where Brian Dunseth will give us the lineups and an interview with Garth Lagerwey, the general manager from Real Salt Lake. A lot to get to tonight, guys. We're going to break down the lineups, look at all the tactics involved in this game, but first I want to start here. Your biggest storyline for this game going in, DC United, the underdog in this game, right? They're the underdog?
A lot of people are just assuming it's going to be a Salt Lake cakewalk here. That's an easy win, but I think they're looking at the table. They're looking at the league table. The RSL's on one end, DC's on the other. DC can barely score goals. RSL just puts them in at will. But I think you look at the DC 11, a starting 11 they can put on the field, and that's going to be a competitive group that's going to give Salt Lake a run for their money.
DC United, you mentioned it, not having a very good season in MLS right now. They are the underdog in this game. Head coach Ben Olsen knows all about that.
We should have good nerves. I mean, it's not a lot to lose for us. Not many people are picking us. I don't know if you've read any of the reports, but apparently we're supposed to lose this game. It's a chance for us to go out here and show what we're made of and show that we're not the team that our record shows.
Ben Olsen there from DC United. And Greg, I'll give Real Salt Lake to you because they are the favorites, as we're talking about in this game. And they've had a relatively easy road to the final. How did they get here?
Well, they've had an easy road mainly because they played all of their games up until now at home, which makes it easy because you have the altitude to deal with. You get the home crowd. Rio Tinto has always been a fortress for them, despite the fact that they've lost 2 finals there in the past. So there's a little bit of a motivation there. But they got there pretty easily also because they played 3 lower division teams just to get to the semi. And it was in the semi against Portland. I think we all talked about it here in the office that this was the final for the U.S. Open Cup. Simon, I respect what you're saying here about DC giving them a run for the money, but that was the final. RSL against Portland. Now RSL has everything to go. They have the ambition, they have the talent, and everything that can take care of this DC team.
Yeah, it was that semifinal win over the Portland Timbers, 2-1 back on August 7th that put them in this final. Again, the game 9 p.m. Eastern on Goal TV, RSL and DC United. And Simon, for DC United, it was a different kind of road. Yeah. It was a difficult one. They played on the road and they played some MLS teams here.
They had 3 MLS teams, but it started with some luck. A 0-0 draw against Richmond. They needed PKs in that one. That got them by. And then by the time June rolled around, they pretty much put their starting lineup in these games because they were out of the league contention pretty much. And so they beat New England, they beat Philadelphia, D-Rose showing up big in those games. Then came the game in Chicago. DC United hadn't won an away game all year. They go into Chicago, they see Sean Johnson spill a ball, then an own goal by Chicago, and then this dose of luck that DC gets, and here they are in the final. That's still the only away game they've won all year in all competitions.
So there's the final final tonight. DC United and Real Salt Lake. There's a lot of history in this tournament. We've mentioned it. It's the 100th edition of this tournament. That's what a lot of people are talking about on Twitter. Make sure you use that hashtag USOC100. Our very own Samantha Yarrick has the latest buzz on Twitter. What you got?
A lot going on, as you said, around this being the 100th U.S. Open final. And guys, they want to know, what is your favorite moment from the last 100 years in a U.S. Open Cup final?
Well, I've got one right away, and it was actually a game I played in, I have to say, which was in 1998 with the Worcester Wildfire, a team that no longer exists, sadly. We played the Tampa Bay Mutiny, my old team in MLS, and we took them to penalties, and we lost in penalties. And it's funny, this week, with everything going on around the U.S. Open Cup final, I've been going back and forth on Twitter with some old Wildfire friends about that game and about that team, and it was a wonderful experience.
I think that's what makes this tournament so special. The underdogs in this tournament that can advance through. Now, no minor league team has won since 1999. Rochester Raging Rhinos were the last team from the minor leagues, so to speak, to win it. No minor league team going to win tonight. It's DC United or Real Salt Lake, and we've got Brian Dunseth out in Sandy, Utah, with the starting lineups.
Hey, thanks, guys. Just handed the starting 11 for both squads. And for Jason Kreis and Real Salt Lake, really no surprises. Chris Winger gets to start on the left-hand side. You got Borchers alongside Salcedo in the defensive part. Then on the right-hand side, Tony Beltran. In the middle, you got Kyle Beckman holding the fort. But the big surprise is that there will be no Luis Gil. He underwent an appendectomy Sunday night. That means Sebastian Velasquez gets to start on the left-hand side. Ned Grabavoy over on the right. Javier Morales underneath. And then you got Alvaro Sabrio and João Plata. Caught up with Jason Kreis yesterday. He told me for them to have success, raise the trophy here, they need to strangle DC with possession. They need to press high. They need to win those second balls, and they've got to get a goal before the halftime whistle. On the other side of things for DC United, no surprise whatsoever, Bill Hamid in goal, but there is one big change. That'll be on the left-hand side of the midfield. Lewis Neal comes in. That means John Thorrington and Perry Kitchen Central, Nick DeLeon over on that right-hand side. But this is the twist. You got Chris Pontius up top alongside Dwayne De Rosario. Caught up with Ben Olsen a few minutes ago. He told me for them to have success, for the opportunity to raise the trophy tonight, they have to do a good job of pressing. Defensively sitting back, cutting down those passing lanes, but making sure they get a defender on a man as opposed to just getting in the right spots. And most importantly, get into that halftime break without giving up a goal. Guys?
There you go, Brian Dunseth there. Thanks so much, Dunny. And make sure you log on MLSsoccer.com. Look in the Golasso Match Center. You can catch all the stats and the lineups for tonight's game. We're happy to be joined now by former MLS and U.S. national team defender Corey Gibbs on the panel, a guy who's played in his fair share of U.S. Open Cup games, including the final back in 2011, the Chicago Fire, Seattle Sounders at CenturyLink Field. Not the best place to play for the away team. What do you remember?
Yeah, but that was by far one of my best MLS experiences. As much as we would have loved to play at home, to play in CenturyLink in front of that crowd was the best experience I could have possibly had. You know, every player wants to win a title. So you go out there, you play for your spirited, and you just want to go out there. You don't worry about the regular season. That's why I think DC has a chance.
And Chicago, they were in a tough spot, I remember. I was at that game. Yeah. And I think you guys gave Seattle a good run for their money. You put a chance away, and I think you have the upper hand against the Sounders team playing in front of their home crowd.
Exactly. We were just unfortunate in the second half.
Anything possible in a one-off game, a title game in the U.S. Open Cup final. And we saw those starting lineups, DC and RSL. I'll throw the DC one to you, Corey, because we're talking about maybe it's not really that one-sided. With that group of guys healthy, they finally have most of their starting lineup ready to go. What do you think of the
Well, listen, that's the best bunch that they're dealt with. So in terms of that 11 that's out there, I think it's a good group. What they're going to have to do is stay compact defensively. You know, take the wind out of the game for Salt Lake the first 15, 20 minutes, and then try and counterattack. Bill Hamid, Dwayne De Rosario have to be huge.
And for RSL, it's the lineup that we would expect. Both of these teams sat their starters over the weekend during league play. And for RSL, they got a win at Vancouver without Kyle Beckerman, Nick Rimando, Sabrio Morales. What do you expect from their lineup?
The one surprise, Luis Gil not there. He had an emergency appendectomy on Sunday. And so Sebastian Velasquez is there in his place. And he's going to be the X factor for me because he can either dribble and make things happen and really decide the game for Salt Lake, or he can have giveaways. And look, he's only started 9 games all year. So how much does he really have in the tank? So I think watch out for Velasquez and what he can do in this game.
Big storyline there for Real Salt Lake. They're at Rio Tinto Stadium. That's exactly where they want to be for a one-game final. Head coach Jason Kreis knows all about that. The advantage at Rio Tinto Stadium. They got to get up early, and then they got to hold on.
whether or not the soccer comes off is a little bit inconsequential. If we can really raise the tempo on our opponent and make them feel it over the first 15 minutes, we oftentimes gain real big benefits in the last 30 due to the altitude.
Back now, Jason Kreis there with some difficulties there. But look, the deal is that they have to win this game at home. They know how to do it. They know how to wear a team down in the second half with that altitude. We'll see if they can get it done. Again, the game, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's on Gold TV. People talking about it on Twitter. Use that hashtag USOC100. Samantha Yarrick has another question for us. Sam, what do you got?
I do. Well, Taylor Payton wants to know, Silva not starting, he's saying, I really hope this is a bit of a strategy and it doesn't backfire for Benny.
Yeah, Luis Silva, a valuable player for DC United ever since he came over for Toronto. I've seen one of the better young players in this league. What do you make of Luis Silva not in the starting lineup here?
I mean, listen, I think Ben Olsen has his group ready. I think the 11 that he's picked is solid enough. You know, Luis Silva definitely come off the bench and be a factor. But in terms of their game plan and what they need to do, they have to sit back defensively, absorb that pressure, and then counterattack. And I think they have the best formation for it.
Well, we've been talking about DC United a lot this year because they were expected to be a lot better than they have been after that run to the Eastern Conference Final last year. Our very own Andrew Wiebe has a little bit more about what happened last year and what went well and what's gone wrong this year. Wiebes, what do you got?
Well, we saw, Nick, in 2012 that it was the three Musketeers. It was Dwayne De Rosario, Chris Pontius, and Nick De Leon. We see those guys once again. And you guys mentioned Luis Silva. The reason why he's not in this game, you look up to my upper right here, this is the last time those four guys played together. Absolutely no presence in the center of the field. You move Chris Pontius up top. You hope that on the counter, as Corey said, he can get in behind. He will run that left channel. Dwayne De Rosario needs space. He simply has not got it this year without any wide play. You hope De Leon, maybe Luis Neal can provide that. And if Dwayne De Rosario gets space, watch out. It's that moment of magic they need. He's the one who can provide it.
Thanks, Andrew. Dwayne De Rosario has played very well for DC United in this tournament. He's got 5 goals in the tournament thus far, the leading scorer in the tournament. And we know all about him. He plays well in big games. Is this a night for D-Ro to shine?
I think if you're a DC United fan, based on what we've seen lately, you're hoping for 1 or 2 magical plays from Dwayne De Rosario, because I think we're starting to see the decline this year. He's that step slower. He can't really get by guys. So you're hoping for that one magic moment, I think, and that could be enough for you.
Simon, he's one step slower, but he's that much more experienced at what he needs to do. He's done it many times in the past, yeah, and he's done it this U.S. Open Cup, and he's going to do it again. He knows this is a 90 minutes he has to shine and perform.
He's not playing against the reserve team here. This is a first team. This is not Open Cup reserve team.
Exactly, fair enough, but he comes through big in big games, and this is his 90 minutes to shine. Without him, it's like an engine without a car running.
Again, Dwayne De Rosario with 5 goals in this tournament, including 3 in an earlier round against the Philadelphia Union. We'll see what he has to say about the final tonight. And a reminder here, we're going to have a post-game show live on MLSsoccer.com with reaction from Sandy, Utah. Make sure you tune in for that after the final whistle. We're going to take a break right now, guys. We'll send it to the scouting report with our armchair analyst Matt Doyle and Dan Hayek. We'll be right back on the U.S. Open Cup final preview show on MLSsoccer.com.
Hello everybody and welcome to this Scouting Report. I'm Dan Hayek here with Matt Doyle, and today we're previewing the U.S. Open Cup final between Real Salt Lake and DC United. Matt, we all know heading into this game, DC has the worst scoring record in MLS, and in fact, they have the chance, I don't know if you want to call it a chance, but they have the possibility of having the worst ever scoring record in Major League.
Dubious distinction.
The dubious distinction of having the worst scoring record in MLS history. That said though, they're at full strength for this game. Chris Pontius is expected to start, as well as Dwayne De Rosario and Nick De Leon. These guys can cause some problems.
Yeah, I think the way to look at it is this is the 2012 DC United team playing in a 2013 final. De Rosario, De Leon, Pontius, these are the guys who picked that team up and brought them to the Eastern Conference final last year. They had 55 points maybe in the regular season. Very, very good attacking team. They just haven't been healthy together all year. D-Ro his form has been off and on, spotty here and there, but only in the regular season. In the Open Cup, he's been the man. I think
he's scored 5 goals. He leads everyone in goals in the U.S. Open Cup.
And you know what? It's a big game as well. Dwayne De Rosario is a big game player. He knows he's not going to have a lot of finals left in his career. RSL cannot sleep on them. They cannot go in there expecting to walk all over this team. If they do, it's going to be big problems for them.
All right, let's switch to the RSL attack for our WTF stat. The number is 3. That's how many goals Devin Sandoval has scored so far in the U.S. Open Cup. That leads all RSL players. He also scored a crucial goal on Saturday against Vancouver. That means he's got to start in this one, right?
Yeah, no. Sandoval's been very good, and you could. Jason Kreis has shown the confidence to put him in there in just about any situation and know that he's going to get results. But he's only starting if Alvaro Saborío is not fit to start. Well, we saw practice on Monday. Alvaro Saborío went full out the entire practice.
He's ready to go.
He's ready to go. Yeah. He's going to start. This is a guy who's won just about everything there is to win in CONCACAF. And as good as Sandoval has been, when he is fit and engaged and ready to play, when Saborío, I should say, is fit and engaged and ready to play 90 minutes, RSL are immeasurably better. So expect him out there in the starting 11.
Now, of course, this is a final, and we know finals are won in the midfield. So that means we're focusing on the midfield for our man-to-man. It's Javier Morales versus Perry Kitchen.
Yeah, Perry Kitchen, good young player playing, in my opinion, the toughest position on the field in defensive midfield, going up against one of the true masters in MLS in Javier Morales, at or near the top of the league in terms of chances created from the run of play every single year. And it's not just because he sees the last pass. It's because he sees and understands where the space is to get into position to hit that last pass. It's convoluted, Dan, but I swear it makes sense.
I like it.
Kitchen is going to need to have 270-degree vision and understand that Morales is going to end up working in that left central channel, trying to get behind him, trying to get that extra beat necessary to slip it forward through. And if he's able to slip Saborío or Robbie Finley or João Plata or Olmos Garcia through into the box time after time after time, it is going to be a very long night for DC. So Perry Kitchen, a lot of work ahead.
All right, well, we'll find out if Kitchen can keep Javier Morales in check. Tuesday night, it kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can watch it on Goal TV, and of course, check out our pregame show on MLSsoccer.com.
On MLSsoccer.com's U.S. Open Cup final pregame show. We're taking you all the way up to kickoff, 9 p.m. Eastern on Gold TV. It's Real Salt Lake and DC United. And a reminder, there's a post-game show as well. A lot of buzz on Twitter about this game as we're getting closer and closer to kickoff, but that's not necessarily what everybody's talking about right now. Samantha Yarrick has the latest from Twitter. What are they talking about? They're talking about Andrew Weeby's clothing on this show.
People are asking what Andrew Weeby is wearing. Dan H. at Ref for Life saying, at Andrew Weeby, is that a cardigan? Is that a blazer? Is that a cardigan blazer? I don't know. We'll have to wait until he is back on the show to find out.
Yeah, very good question. We actually asked him to wear a sport coat, and he said he could not wear a sport coat because he doesn't own one. I think it's a smoking jacket or some type of...
It's a cardilaser. What is
it's
this?
A cardilaser. It looks very good.
It's a blardigan.
Well
It
done.
looks good. Thank you so much for classing up the show here tonight. Thanks for coming in. Let's talk a little bit about the tournament itself. It's been a big story this season, and how do you improve the tournament? Because here we are at the 100th edition, and we're still wondering if teams care enough, players care enough, fans care enough. There's a number of issues we can discuss here, but where do we start? What's the number one thing they have to fix?
Well, scheduling is always going to be top of the list because you have Major League Soccer, but you also have the other lower division leagues, and everyone starts and stops at different times. And you have MLS clubs that perhaps want to condense the schedule and have as many rounds within a certain amount of time as possible. And then you have you're weighing the other side, which is some lower division teams where the U.S. Open Cup is their budget for the year. They want to have time to sell against these events. So you got to balance. There's a compromise, but I think they're working through the kinks.
They're trying to condense this schedule, Greg, and there's also an issue when it comes to travel, because you look at a team like the LA Galaxy that goes all the way east, or the Seattle Sounders.
Of course, I think travel has been an issue for them from the start because it's very expensive to have to fly. And it's not just the MLS teams, because the MLS teams look at it and they say, if you're the LA Galaxy or you're San Jose, you don't want to travel all the way to Florida or Carolina to have to play a game in this when it's midweek in between two other games, right? If you are a lower division team, it's really expensive to have to fly somewhere with your whole team as well. They get a little bit of a stipend, but is it enough? That's the real question. I think that the biggest issue right now for the U.S. Open Cup, I was talking actually to Josh Hakala from the Cup.us, who's sort of the guru of the U.S. Open Cup. And one of the things he was talking about is we need to sort of emphasize the incentive that does exist for the players, the clubs, and the fans, and that is the path to the CCL. The biggest thing that's coming out of this one is the way RSL have approached this game in particular, this U.S. Open Cup. They've said the U.S. Open Cup is the easiest way for us to get back to the CONCACAF Champions League, and that was most important and foremost on their mind when they approached it. 5 games and you're in, and that's why they're really in this.
Yeah, RSL stressed that a lot this year ever since they were bounced from the CONCACAF Champions League last time out. One of the other big issues here, though, that RSL didn't face this year is what happens when an MLS team plays its USL Pro affiliate. Now, we saw DC United played the Richmond Kickers in the opening game there, and then we saw Kansas City play Orlando in that much publicized game out at Sporting Park in which Orlando City beat Kansas City. Simon, I have to assume that's one of the initiatives going forward is to rid the tournament of those matchups that are really a conflict of interest.
Yeah, and I've spoken to officials who handle the organization of the tournament. They say that is absolutely number one on the list of the Open Cup Committee. That's the body that helps on the competition side determine what the format is. It's made up of representatives from the different leagues, from U.S. Soccer. There's also a player representative. But I point to the fact that I think this tournament needs more commercialization and more marketing. And I think to achieve that, you're going to need a marketing body, almost like an agency set up, whose sole purpose is to promote the tournament. And whether this is in-house at U.S. Soccer, whether it's a third party, I think we need to see activity. And the Open Cup Committee doesn't rule when it comes to marketing and promotion.
Yes, we do.
It has to be another
But Simon,
body.
it's a chicken or egg thing in this case, right? Because before you can really market it, you have to say that it's something of value, that everyone values it equally, and that they want to play in this and work for that incentive, whether it's the CCL or it's the prize money or whatever it is. So you can't market it until you have the value, and maybe from a marketing standpoint, it's harder to market because the value isn't there.
Correct, but I mean, if you market it properly and it raises the profile of the tournament, then fans care more and they put the demand on their teams to perform at a high level in the tournament.
A lot of teams do care about this tournament. We've been seeing some sites from Rio Tinto Stadium out there in Sandy, Utah. That's a team that does care about this. Real Salt Lake, we're going to talk to GM Garth Lagerwey here in a second, but another question on Twitter, a reminder, use that hashtag USOC100. Sam, they're talking about which teams care about this tournament?
They are at John Hudson asking asking which teams prioritize the U.S. Open Cup and why.
So you're talking about RSL this time around, but certainly the Seattle Sounders have really staked their reputation to 3 straight U.S. Open Cup titles. The Chicago Fire have won 4. I think they would prioritize this tournament. What else?
Definitely. I think, and you brought up the Sounders, they did it because they said as a quick way to gain credibility winning trophies. Right. They started right out of the gate saying if we start winning trophies, regardless of what that trophy is, it gains our club some credibility, and that was important for them.
And then you have the teams that are the traditional teams who have tasted this before. They know what it's like. We're talking about DC United and Chicago.
Those are some of the traditional teams that have taken this tournament very seriously, but Real Salt Lake looking for their first U.S. Open Cup title. Want to send it now to our good friend Brian Dunseth, who's out at Rio Tinto Stadium in Sandy, Utah, with a special guest. It's RSL GM Garth Lagerwey.
General Manager Garth Lagerwey. Garth, conversations recently have been about how to better this tournament, how to make it more viable, more visible. As a general manager, what are some
I actually saw this afternoon that the U.S. Soccer is looking into something like that as well. I think when it gets stretched out across May to October, people kind of lose track of it. It kind of pops up here and there. I think it's a really cool tournament. I mean, I think there's a March Madness quality to this single elimination knockout stuff. If we can figure out how to compress it, play it maybe every other week somehow, I think that could be really exciting.
A big change this year went to the coin flip. RSL's been very fortunate every single home match. You guys had the opportunity, Eastern Conference Championship in 2008, the CONCACAF Champions League against Monterrey here. Neither time were you able to raise a trophy. How important is it to raise a trophy in this stadium for these fans?
I think psychologically it's massive. We have to be able to prove that we can play as the favorites. There's no getting away from it that tonight we are the favorites, and we have to deliver as the favorites. We've been David Goliath, we repeat all the time. We may have a different philosophy from other folks, but we have to prove now that when we're on top, we can get something done at home in front of our fans and bring home a trophy.
A lot of focus coming in this match was about DC United and their form in Major League Soccer, but all bets are off in a game like this. Since it's a one-off, when you look at that team, where do you see the danger, and what do you guys need to do well to lift that trophy?
Well, I'd say people forget how good DC was offensively a year ago, and they've had a ton of injuries and not been able to get their guys in the field together. But it looks tonight like we might see D-Row, Pontius, Silva, and I'm on TV, so of course my mom's going to pick. But they're they have a very good attacking group when they're healthy and when they're all together. So it's a team that they've had some bad. To be reminded of that. So ready.
Thanks, Dunny, and thanks to Garth Lagerwey. And I apologize for some of the technical difficulties out there at Rio Tinto Stadium. I promise the stream will look a lot better on Goal TV once the game starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. Garth there, Corey here now, and we have no real concerns about RSL's lineup. But we have a concern potentially in goal for DC United. You like Bill Hamid there, but Samantha Yarrick has a question on Twitter for us about whether or not he should be there. Sam, what do you got?
More of a statement from Doug Jimenez saying no disrespect to Bill Hamid, but Willis was on goal for the whole tournament. This is his final. He deserves to be there.
All right, so what do we think? Bill Hamid in goal or Joe Willis?
No, listen, we've spoken about this many times. This is a no-brainer. You have to go with Bill Hamid. He's your number one. Joe Willis actually basically just played out of default. It's either they had to rest their first team or Bill Hamid was gone with the national team. He's played 8 games this season. In the regular season, 17 goals against. That's almost 2 goals a game.
At one point, though, Willis was the starter. And in my opinion, he was better than Bill Hamid at that point. Look, I think you can't do it with Willis because you're not doing it with the other spots as well. We're talking about there are other players who played especially on the back line, who played the Open Cup games and now are out of this game because you go with your starting group. And I think it actually is going to work out well with Hamid. Hamid's a reflex save kind of guy, and I think he's going to get peppered. And so go with the reflex guy. He's going to stop a few, make some spectacular saves, I think, in this game.
My biggest concern, though, is which Bill Hamid are we going to see tonight? Is it going to be the one that steps up like we know how he can play, or is he going to have a shocker?
Yeah, that's a big question for DC United. The other big question, another person on Twitter has it on their mind. What happens to Ben Olsen? What do you got, Samantha?
Yeah, they're asking if a win saves Ben Olsen's job.
This is a big question for DC United because they've obviously struggled in league play. We talked about it before. It's surprising how they really didn't live up to expectations from last year. So Ben Olsen has survived this long. Will this win save the season and reassure him coming back in 2014?
I don't think that a win or a loss here factors into how the season is evaluated. I think there's there's a bigger body of work here to take into account for the owners, and I think you also have to take into account injuries. This team has been saddled with injuries. They've rarely had their first 11 on the field, so I think this Open Cup, whether they win it or not, I don't know that it helps his case or hurts him.
No, Simon, I totally agree. I'm right with you on that one. He's an icon to the organization, and I've spoken to a lot of the players, and despite a dismal season, he's kept the locker room, which is hard to do, a bad coach or a good coach. So a lot of the players still respect him and look up to him. But I tell you what, if they do end up losing, he's going to have a lot of pressure restructuring this team and going in early into the next season.
Yeah, I would say the clock is ticking at the end of this season, going into the next season for Ben Olsen. After a great year last year when everybody was talking about Ben Olsen as one of the best coaches in the league, not just young coaches, but one of the best coaches in the league. He's got a tough task, though. On Tuesday night, it's RSL at home.
Tonight.
It's DC United, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's on Goal TV, and we're going to have a live post-game show right here on MLSsoccer.com. I want to get your final thoughts and predictions as we inch closer to kickoff here. You've talked a lot about Real Salt Lake. What do they have to do tonight, or is it written in the stars that they're going to win this, their first U.S. Open Cup title?
I think for Salt Lake, you just can't lose your cool here. Look, they've been in big spots before. 2008 Western Conference Final, 2010 playoffs, 2011 in the CONCACAF Champions League Final, and at some point they know they need a goal, then they lock up when they can't get it. And so they have to stay calm and really wait their turn, wait for the chance to fall and not press, because more minutes pass, though, that will fall into the hands of DC United.
It's very simple for DC United. They're going to have to stay compact defensively, relieve the pressure that they're going to get against them, and then counter when they have the possibilities to do so. 2 players that are going to have to come up big, Dwayne De Rosario and Bill Hamid, like we spoke about. Simple as.
Some good storylines for this game. Again, it's 9 p.m. Eastern on Goal TV, DC United and Real Salt Lake. Make sure you log on, MLSsoccer.com, and check out the Golasso Match Center. All the stats and all the important facts for this big U.S. Open Cup final. And a reminder again, MLSsoccer.com has you covered post-game, the live show back here with these guys, Corey Gibbs, Simon Borg, and Greg Lawless, as well as Samantha Yarrick taking all your tweets. We'll be back then. Until then, enjoy the game on Goal TV. We'll see you a little bit later.